The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and James Gunn's The Suicide Squad were two huge movies that came out at their time of release. One of them received mixed reviews, while the other had raving reviews. Which one do you think had the better marketing campaign? In this video, we're going to talk about how marketing plays such a pivotal role in the success or failure of a movie, and how marketing directly impacted the outcome of these movies. Most of the time, people think a movie is successful based on if they've heard about it and if people say it's good, but movie studios aren't playing by the same rules. Just because a movie had a ton of positive feedback doesn't mean the studio viewed it as a success. It works the same with overwhelmingly negative reviews. That movie could still be viewed as a success, and even get a sequel.
Oh, I will.
Suck on that!
Okay.
The reason why? They look at the box office. And one of the movies I just mentioned made a ton. One of them made over 5 times what it was made for, while the other didn't even recoup its spend. So back to my question, which movie had the better marketing campaign? If you said The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you'd be right. Even though this movie had a ton of mixed reviews and didn't get a sequel, it still crushed at the box office. Meanwhile, The Suicide Squad earned less than it was made for, and in a few minutes, I'll explain why that is. First, when I say marketing a movie, what comes to mind? Trailers. And although they do play a huge role, they only scratch the surface on how a movie could be marketed. There's dozens of ways to market a movie, ranging from social media, festivals, and posters, to TV spots, press releases, and talk shows. Getting you interested in going to the movies is more important now than ever, with less and less people attending. So the first key to how marketing controls what you watch is they're always looking to find the right audience.
Round up the usual suspects.
Back in 1905, when movie theaters first opened, there was just a catalog that you'd scroll through until you found something that sounded interesting. Then about 10 years later, an advertising manager of a movie theater made the first ever trailer and started putting that before every movie that played. Fast forward to now, and we've gotten a lot better at marketing movies. Instead of the same trailers playing in front of every single movie, you're going to find specific trailers before certain genres of movies. You're not going to walk into The Nun 2 and see the new theater camp movie. Why? Because audiences are different. The same thing applies for streaming. It's the largest way that we consume media today. And when you finish your favorite movie or show on a streaming service, what are you met with? Recommended content. This is even the same for YouTube. If you're watching this video, like you are right now, you'll probably see a lot of related content on the side, or something that YouTube thinks you might be interested in just to keep you on their app. The point is to keep you interested in watching content on their channel so they can make more money on you. So a successful movie doesn't need to be good to you. It just needs to find the right group of people willing to spend their money in the theater on their movie so that the studio can make their money back and maybe some more. I'm sure there's someone out there who really loves Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, but the marketing team behind it promoted it to everyone in the hopes of getting their money back. And they did. So much so that there's going to be a sequel to objectively the worst movie that's come out this year. But their goal was met. They found the right audience, which in this case was everyone who knew about Winnie the Pooh growing up and wanted to see how this movie would twist that story.
Apart?
As long as we're apart together, we shall certainly be fine.
Remember how I mentioned that The Suicide Squad earned less than it was made for? How is that possible when so many people like the movie? Well, they were already fighting an uphill battle since the movie of the same name came out only a few years prior and was hated by people. Pair that with the misaligned targeting of their audience and you've got the perfect combination of a flop of a movie. The marketing team for The Suicide Squad focused heavily on James Gunn's fandom and only promoting comedic elements of the movie.
What the hell's wrong with you people?
We're bad guys. It's what we do.
They ignored a much larger audience, who are younger audiences that may not get every joke, and adults who don't follow movie directors as religiously as they expected. And that's why finding the right audience is essential to creating a successful movie. But like I mentioned earlier, marketing isn't only trailers. There's a ton of other techniques that take place to get the movie out there. And this second marketing technique leverages those.
No way.
Some of the most popular forms of marketing are talk shows and interviews. It's a quick and easy way to gain excitement since the celebrity starring in the movie gets to talk directly to their target audience. There's a movie coming out in early 2024 starring someone who's gone around in a few interviews recently, and in these different public appearances, she stirred up a ton of drama online. People stitching TikToks, other making YouTube videos, talking about it on podcasts, Twitter, even on the news. While they've definitely upset a lot of people, it's interesting to note that the studio making the movie hasn't pulled any of these comments that have been made, which brings us to the second key marketing technique that influences what you watch.
By the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Everybody hates the new Snow White movie, and it
narrative that women and femmes.
It's white as snow is no longer white. The dwarves are no longer dwarves, and the prince is going to be some useless, weak feminist.
It's no longer.
Rachel Zegler in the new Snow White is the perfect example of how negative publicity is still a big way to get the news out there. The new Snow White coming out in the next year could be horrible. While this movie may receive a ton of negative reviews, it's still going to get a bunch of those same angry people in the theater to watch the movie on premiere night. So while the movie may be written off as being bad or boring, it's definitely going to be considered a successful movie in the eyes of Disney. This is where the Suicide Squad comes in. Like I mentioned before, this movie went by the same name as the movie that came out only a few years before its release, and the original had really bad reviews, but using the same name, with a more popular director at the helm, they were hoping to ride the wave of negativity of the old movie to bringing in a big box office win for the new one. Unfortunately, it didn't work out this time. So going back to Snow White, why wouldn't Disney get their PR team to pull down those controversial video clips of Rachel Zegler's comments? Because like The Greatest Showman says, all publicity is good publicity.
Because I just invented it.
Have you ever watched a talk show where the person being interviewed just so happens to bring a clip from the movie they're about to be in? How about seeing that same clip 97 times before the movie's release? There's an old saying in movie making that goes, show, don't tell. And this same idea can be applied to marketing movies. So instead of listening to that cast member describe the same scene on the talk show, podcast, or interview, they'll usually come in with something to excite audiences.
So we can show it to the audience?
Show it to the audience, they can see it.
Oh, this is good. More people will see this than that stupid movie.
While this technique is super true and valuable to movie studios, it can sometimes backfire. And The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the perfect example of what could happen when a movie studio doubles down on this marketing technique. Between press interviews, talk shows, junkets, TV spots, and trailers, this movie gave away a ton. You'd typically expect to see a few minutes of the film and maybe reruns of those same clips leading up to the actual release. But the marketing team of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't want to do that. They wanted to show off just how much work, sets, CGI, and story went into making this movie. It was a huge, expensive movie, so why not show it off? In taking that approach, the marketing of this movie ended up releasing almost 1/5 of the movie's runtime. They showed over 25 minutes of footage over the course of a few months of marketing, just to get people excited for the movie. And it did work. While the movie performed exceedingly well, it made a lot of moviegoers feel mixed about it. The spectacle of the movie had worn off by the time of its release because they've already seen so much of it. So reviews were extremely mixed and ended up getting so much negativity that they just scrapped plans for their third movie. Technically, Sony had a blockbuster, but realistically, it was a failure to its audience. So showing the audience the best parts of a movie can be a huge help for you if you know how much and when to show it to them. Like I said at the beginning of this video, movie studios aren't playing by the same rules. Just because a movie has great reviews doesn't mean it's good. Just because a movie has horrible reviews doesn't mean it's bad. They're looking at spreadsheets and box office numbers. If a movie makes around 2.5 times what it was made for, you can bet they'll call it a success of a movie and want to make more related content. And the way they ensure it's a success is by implementing those 3 golden rules of marketing a movie. I mentioned earlier that streaming plays a huge role in how we market and consume media, but there's something else that's playing an even bigger role in how you watch movies. So check out this video breaking down who the real villain of Hollywood is, where I'll explain exactly how events like the Hollywood strikes are affecting you now more than ever.